Okay. So what we talk about in social technology, user content generation and social networking. What happens here? The internet and e-commerce technologies have evolved to be much more social by allowing users to create and share with their personal friends content in the form of text, videos, music, or photos. So these technologies have enabled the usual consumers or usual internet users to create content and share content with their friends, with their peers, right? And not only to their social circles, not only to people they know, but also to people that they don't know out there in the world, right? These content may be in the form of text, in the form of videos, in the form of music or photos. Can you tell me a few popular examples for these kinds of user content generation and social networking platforms? Now you have to know this. There's no way how you wouldn't know. You are daily engaging with these kinds of platforms. Can you tell me a few examples? Content generations are social networking වලට helpful when platforms මොනවාද? වර්තමානයේ අපි කතා කරනවා. Yes. Any idea? So if you're not going to talk, it's going to be difficult for me to continue the lecture. I will also just mention some few things casually and just move on if you are also not interested to discuss that in detail. I also can just read out the point and move to the next one if you are not willing to engage with the discussion. Yes, can you all tell me, Hansani, what are such platforms? Hansani Purna, can you tell me මොනාදේම social networking enable කරන platforms content generate කරන්න content share කරන්න? Yes 19704 කියන්න බලන්න. Yes, anyone? No one? 93 954. Right. Okay. So if you're not engaging with the lecture and if you're sort of leaving the lecture when I'm asking questions, that means you're not interested in listening to it. So I will also proceed on. So you all can read that point and add to your knowledge, right? Personally, you can read on that point and add whatever you can find to your knowledge. Right. Now, I want to share with you now what has enabled these types of interactions or these types of, let's say, increased buzz regarding e-commerce, right? What is the reason behind it, and what kind of let's say trends do we experience in the present context regarding these types of networks or technologies? What is the technology penetration among people like, right? So I will show you this report by Data Reporter, right? Data Reporter site එකෙන් මේක annually publish කරන report එකක්. මේකේ ගොඩක් global trends ගැන ඕගලන්ට බලා ගන්න පුළුවන් මේ internet ආශ්‍රිත. And that also, from that also you can get an idea about what is the nature of the digital environment that we are living in at the present. And then you will be able to understand yourself that it is the reason why these things have become very popular in the present context, right? So from the 7.91 billion population, overall population in the world, you can see internet users amount to 4.95 billion and active social media users out of these internet users is 4.62 billion. So out of the total population, these internet users account to 62.5. So that is a vast majority, right? So these are some of the reasons why this e-commerce and the related technologies have become increasingly embraced by people, right? Then you see the digital growth here, year-on-year growth of internet users. There is a year-on-year 4% growth, right? And active social media users grown by 10%. And if we look at a few digital trends, here you can see a summary of the entire world, some essential demographics, right? And let's look at some statistics related to the internet here. You can see how much time, average daily time spent using the internet by each internet user. Can you believe that you have a tendency of spending around 6 hours and 58 minutes average per day on the internet, right? So imagine what kind of possibilities these statistics or these trends can bring about for businesses, right? So look how the internet users have grown from 2012 up to when it comes to 2022, right? So the number of users have grown, although there are differences in growth rates, right? Gradually the growth is shown. So you can refer to these types of reports. This report is available online. There are many more interesting insights and trends that you can look at and learn something out from these report, data reporter annual reports, right? They have, I think, published way back in beginning of 2000s up until today. Their reports are available online. You can refer to them and add to your knowledge, right? Next, we are going to refer to some key features or key concepts related to digital markets, right? So what do we have here? We some special things that we can understand when we look at e-commerce markets, related digital markets, is that digital markets reduce certain features such as information asymmetry, search costs, transaction costs, and menu costs, right? අපි කියන digital market එකක දැන් මේ information asymmetry, search cost, transaction cost, menu cost කියන්නේ සාම්ප්‍රදායික වෙළඳපළක අපි දකින යම් ලක්ෂණ. तर මේ ලක්ෂණ අපිට reduce කරන්න උදව් කරනවා digital markets හරහා, right? Now, for example, what is information asymmetry? Now, symmetry කියන්නේ මොකද? Symmetry is අපි කියන්නේ සමමිතිකනේ, symmetrical කියලා කියන්නේ. එතකොට asymmetry means when there's an imbalance or when there's a sort of inequality, right? So information asymmetry means when one party in a transaction has more information regarding the transaction than the other party in the transaction. අපි transaction එකකට යොමු වෙන පාර්ශ්වයන් දෙකක් ගත්තොත් එක පාර්ශ්වයකට අනිත් පාර්ශ්වයට වඩා තොරතුරු වලට පිවිසීමේ අවකාශය තියෙනවා නම් අපි ඒකට කියනවා information asymmetry කියලා, right? So because of digital markets, this information asymmetry is reduced. Why? Now earlier also I told you that information availability in digital markets is very high. Information transparency එක වැඩි, information availability එක වැඩි. ඒ නිසා ගැනුම්කරුවා සහ විකුණුම්කරුවා කියන පාර්ශ්ව දෙකටම තොරතුරු වලට ප්‍රවේශ වීමට වැඩි අවකාශයක් තියෙනවා. Then the second one is search costs. What is a search cost? Search cost is simply the effort that you put forward to find, to buy a certain product, right? To find a product in a traditional market, you have to incur a lot of cost, a lot of time. දැන් මේ වාතාවරණය වගේ හිතන්නකො ලංකාවේ මේ ප්‍රොඩක්ට් එකක් සර්ච් කරන්න අපි දෙවාරයක් හිතනවානේ ෆිසිකලි ගිහිල්ලා ගන්න කලින් නේ පෙට්‍රල් ප්‍රශ්න අපිට ෂොප් එකකට ගිහිල්ලා දෙයක් ගන්නකොට අපිට ඒ සඳහා වැඩි වියදමක් දරන්න වෙනවා නේ බට් අපිට ගෙදර ඉඳන් ඔන්ලයින් ඕඩර් කරලා දෙයක් ගන්න පුළුවන් නම් අපි ඒකට පෙළඹෙන ප්‍රවණතාවය වැඩි. Why? Because the search cost is considerably low. The time you take to find suppliers or shops and the cost that you have to incur to search that and to order and get down that product is very low compared to physical settings, right? So therefore, that search cost is reduced in a digital market. Third thing reduced by digital markets is transaction cost, right? Transaction cost. So what do you mean by a transaction cost? Essentially, a transaction cost is the cost that you have to incur to participate in a market, right? When participating in a market, you will have to incur certain costs like sometimes contract cost, right? But unlike in a physical market, in a traditional market, you don't have to incur that kind of cost, right? In order to engage in transactions, you can very easily source your suppliers. And in addition to that, right, give me a moment, right? I'm having a network disturbance today. Right. So I was talking about transaction costs, right? Now, what happens in transaction cost here is, like I mentioned, there can be contract-related costs, let's say certain commissions, for example, sometimes, let's say for labor in relation to distributing products and services, things like that. There are certain transaction costs that you have to incur. But these can also be greatly reduced in a digital market, right? E-commerce based market. Why? Because very easily you can source, find suppliers, find buyers, and connect the parties without incurring so much trouble, right? Now, for example, the cost that the amount of contract for a contract what you have to pay, right? You can greatly reduce by participating in a digital market and simply advertising on a digital platform. So the platform you will have to pay a certain amount, but that amount will be considerably lower than the price you will have to pay for let's say a broker or a contractor, or in order to comply with a certain contract. Those kinds of costs can be greatly reduced, and even the labor cost that you have to incur in the process of distribution and all that, in fulfilling the contract, in fulfilling the transaction, you can greatly reduce when you're participating in digital markets. Then menu costs, right? The cost that you have to incur in this sense means the cost of changing prices. In a traditional market, cost of changing prices is high. Now imagine the ලංකාවේ මේ දවස්වල තියෙන උද්දමනය ගැන හිතන්නකොනේ. එතකොට prices වෙනස් කරන එක ලේසි නැහැ. There is a cost that have to be incurred for that. And for physically operating merchants, it is difficult for them to literally think of changing all the prices. Let's say all the labels or taglines or whatever that they have already put on their products. It's difficult. But imagine if you are operating on a digital format, it's very easy. Just a matter of going to your website, going to your Facebook page. You can simply change the price for everyone to see, right? So that therefore menu cost is considerably reduced in digital markets, right? Then secondly, we are also focusing on certain things especially enabled by digital markets. Digital markets මෙන්න මේ කියන දේවල් ඇති කරනවා කියනවා. මොනවාද? One thing, price discrimination. What is price discrimination? Simply, price discrimination means selling the same type of good or nearly the same good to different target groups at different prices. What kind of instances would you observe this? අපි එකම ප්‍රොඩක්ට් එක එහෙම නැත්නම් අපි බොහෝ දුරට සමාන ප්‍රොඩක්ට් එකක් different consumer groups වලට different prices වලට sell කරනවා. Now උදාහරණයකට think of an instance where you are booking a ticket online to see a movie, right? To see a movie, you are booking a ticket online. So based on the seating arrangement that you prefer, the price that you have to pay for that changes, right? So on digital environments, this can be done very conveniently. Based on the preference, the seating arrangement you select, the price will be customized to your preference and indicated to you, right? So price discrimination is enabled. Then dynamic pricing. What do you mean by dynamic pricing? Dynamic pricing means that the price of a product varies depending on the demand characteristics of the customer or the supply situation of the seller. So based on demand and supply characteristics, the product price changes. In what kind of instances do you observe this? In a real world scenario, you might observe this especially in airline industry when there is a peak, right? Or during very busy months, very busy seasons, the airline tickets prices are skyrocketing, right? They are heavily increasing, but they can very easily do that dynamic pricing based on the demand and service, based on how the demand and service forces are playing, they can change it very easily. Even if you're going to book a hotel, it's the same, right? The prices are very dynamic based on these demand and supply forces. අපි ඉල්ලුම peak hours වලට හරියන්න peak seasons වලට හරියන්න pricing එක change කරන්න හරිම පහසුයි. Even think in a simple example like booking a pick me or an Uber during peak hours, right? උදේ 7:00 8 even sometimes until 9, and even hours office arena velawale until like 4 to 6 wage period එක. It's very the fares are very high. Even they message display a message fares are usually high due to high demand කියලා display කරනවානේ. So that is how digital markets enable dynamic pricing. Then disintermediation is also another thing enabled by digital markets. What happens here is digital markets enable to remove certain organizations or certain businesses, certain layers of business that are responsible for certain intermediary actions along the value chain of an organization. Right? Now let's look at these next figures that it will be more clearer to you. Figure 10.2, the benefits of disintermediation to the consumer. Now here, this is a perfect example for disintermediation. You can see manufacturer sells, produces and sells to customer in the last instance. In the first instance, manufacturer has to go through the distributor, a retailer, and then to the customer. So this is the traditional case. But look at here, the intermediary parties shown in the first instance are disappeared here. No, there's no need of distributor, there's no need of retailer. What happens as a result? The cost has greatly reduced. Assume this is a transaction for selling sweaters, right? A sweater business, a clothing business. So in the traditional setting, these intermediary layers that you had in a transaction, by using digital technologies and participating in digital markets, you can very easily cut off those participants. For example, if you're registered in a platform like Daraz or even AliExpress or eBay or something like that, right? So no need to worry too much about separate labor, paying for separate distributors, paying for separate retailers. You may have to incur some cost such as for warehousing and such, and maybe sometimes certain intermediaries, but not as much as you will have to in a physical setting. So as a result, what happens? As you don't have to pay, as a business doesn't have to pay to distributor and retailer an extra cost, that cost becomes considerably lower to the customer as well, right? Typical distribution channel has several intermediary layers, each of which adds to the cost of the product. So all these amounts you pay, intermediary levels, that gets added to the final cost. Removing layers lowers the final cost to the consumer. See, from 48, it has reduced to 20. So that is how digital markets enable certain things and how it can cause advantages as well, right? Then finally, let's take a look at the concept of digital goods here, right? So what we are talking about here is goods that can be delivered over a digital network. Some examples have been given: music tracks, video, software, newspapers, books. You are also a heavy consumer of digital goods in the modern context. All of us are, right? We no longer go to a shop and buy a CD or a DVD. If you want to listen to music, you just simply Google it and you select a platform that is providing these music services, right? Downloadable services, music sharing. If you want to watch a video, simply a matter of logging to YouTube, or if you want to watch a movie, it has become a digital good and the business model in itself that you can easily refer to Netflix or Netflix, right? There are so many platforms. Even software, right? So a lot of physical products have been replaced by software. Such as now, let's say document management systems, document processing software. Earlier, everything was by hand and paper and pen. But now we have a software called word processors for those kinds of tasks. We have e-versions of newspapers, e-versions of books. So what is special about these digital goods? The cost of producing first unit, almost the entire cost of the product. Marginal cost of producing the second unit is about 0. Then මේ කියන ඔය music tracks enable කරන services, එතකොට video platforms නේ, මේ softwares, මේ e-newspapers හරහා, e-books හරහා මොකක්ද අපිට enable වෙලා තියෙන්නේ? අපිට එක මේ භාණ්ඩේ එක copy එකක් හදාගන්න, එක version එකක් හදාගන්න අපි දරන පිරිවැය. අපි තුමු උදාහරණයට මේ software එකක්, we have to write software, right? Software coding කියලා අපි කියනවා. ඒතර coding කරන්න, එහෙම නැත්නම් system එක analyze කරන්න, ඒක develop කරන්න, ඒ වගේ දේවල් වලට යන වියදම ඇරුණකොට අපිට නැවත වතාවක් මේ product එක replicate කරන්න, මේකේ copy එකක් හදන්න යන වියදම අපි කියනවා අර ප්‍රථම අවස්ථාවේ අපි දරපු වියදමට ඉතාම සමානයි කියලා. It's almost 0. දැන් අපි physically පොතක් ගහලා ඒ පොතේ copy 100ක් අපි print කරන්න අපිට සෑහෙන වියදමක් දරන්න වෙනවනේ. But imagine if it's an e-book, do you have to incur that amount of cost to make copies of that e-book and make it available on Amazon or any other online platform? No, right? So marginal cost of producing a second unit is very close to 0 in these digital products. That is something very special to digital products. Then also cost of delivery over the internet is very low. It's just a matter of someone logging into a website and watching video එකක් නම් you log into the website and you watch it. But let's say, for example, in a book, you have to log into the website and you read through the book or the newspaper. But if they were delivered to consumers in a traditional setting, you will have to incur a lot of delivery cost, right? There will be a physical delivery cost involved and a labor cost involved, an administrative cost involved in order to deliver that product from your end to your consumer's end. But it's not so in the digital environment. Maybe you will have to pay a certain fee for the person who is hosting your product, the platform owner. You will have to pay some amount, but that is considerably lower when considering the amount you have to pay in a traditional physical setting. But marketing costs, they can remain the same And pricing can be very much variable. Why? Because now Facebook එකේ අපි sponsored ad campaign එකක් කරන්න we have to incur a cost, right? අපිට යන්න පුළුවන් amounts අනුව අපිට දරන්න පුළුවන් amount එකේ අනුව අපේ advertisement එක කොයිතරම් දුරට sponsor වෙලා කොයිතරම් කාලයක් ඒක පවතිනවද platform එක තුල කොයිතරම් targeted audiences වලට යනවද reach out වෙනවද ඔය වගේ දේවල් තීරණය කරන්න පුළුවන් අපේ අතේ තියෙන budget එක අනුව. So likewise, marketing costs could vary. Are you going to display that in form of a video clip or simply in the form of a post? Simply, are you going to place it on a YouTube platform or on Facebook? So the rates that you have to incur for the two platforms will be different, right? So likewise, the pricing of your marketing efforts could vary, but still, you have to incur marketing cost on the digital platform as well to advertise your digital goods, right? Then industries with digital goods are undergoing revolutionary changes. Now, these examples, you can see the publishers, record labels, and such. These business models were existing physically some time back, right? But no longer they are the same, right? There are online versions available for all these business models online, right? Now you don't, for example, a record label, you don't physically go and buy a music track or a DVD or a CD, right? Now you refer to music online, right? So the same with book publishing and other publishing industries. For publishing, you can very easily reach out using the internet as a platform. There are so many resources that you can find to publish your work, right? No longer these business models themselves have transferred from physical settings to digital settings, right? Then on the next day, we will talk about the types of electronic commerce, right? So for today, let's stop our lesson from there. So we talked about, we provided an introduction to e-commerce, digital markets, and digital goods. We talked about how it evolved. We talked about special characteristics of e-commerce technology. And also finally, we talked about the things that digital markets reduce and the things that digital markets enable. And also, we talked about the concept of digital goods here, right? Okay, so then thank you for your participation and have a good day, everyone. We will continue with the lecture next day.